Brady Corbett's The Brutalist may have narrowly missed out on Best Picture at the 97th Academy Awards, but the film still deserves credit for its masterful storytelling and incredibly rich themes. The story follows a fictional architect, Laszlo Toth, who travels to the U.S. to escape his war-torn home and benefit from the so-called American dream. The film garnered strong critical acclaim for its layered storytelling, outstanding performances, and ongoing relevance in today's society. The Brutalist is now available on streaming, which has introduced a whole new audience to this timeless story. Like many of the films that were recognized at the ceremony, The Brutalist is a film with real thematic depth that requires multiple viewings to fully understand. While the story isn't particularly complicated, there's a strong subtext about trauma, abuse, and the immigrant experience that may not be immediately clear to first-time viewers. However, this necessity for rewatches is what makes The Brutalist such a staggering accomplishment, and it's the kind of film that reveals new layers with each watch. Thankfully, Adrien Brody's recent Oscar win has inspired many audiences who initially passed on the film to give it a chance. The term brutalist has several connotations within Corbett's film, with the most obvious being its reference to brutalism, the artistic movement where Toth made his name. Throughout The Brutalist, it's gradually revealed that Toth was a leading figure in the brutalist architectural movement, which was a real-world development that emerged during the 1950s, primarily in Europe. The movement started in post-war Britain, with its buildings characterized thanks to their minimalist constructions and emphasis on bare building materials. It was a stark and polarizing contrast to the maximalist, decorative architecture that arose throughout the 18th and 19th centuries. However, the term brutalist can also be used to refer to Toth himself, who also represents unfamiliarity and foreignness to the Americans that he surrounds himself with. In the very same way that brutalism gained popularity for its ability to challenge our preconceived notions of what a beautiful building should look like, Toth brings his contemporaries face to face with the reality that their world may not be as perfect as it seems from the inside, deconstructing the idea of the so-called American dream. What's most important is that in The Brutalist's ending, Toth's personal legacy is inseparable from his architectural one. He's remembered for the buildings he created, once again binding him to the concept of brutalism and causing the audience to question exactly what the title is referring to. Is it a story about the architectural movement or the person who practiced it? There's also a subtle reference to the brutal behavior of characters like Van Buren, who manipulate Toth for his own personal gain. Although architecture plays a huge role at the surface level of the brutalist story, its relevance is mostly allegorical. The art form is little more than a plot device to set the stage for the film's true message, which is one of cyclical trauma and self-acceptance. Toth travels to America in search of the social paradise that's been sold to him through idealist propaganda. But what he finds is actually a much more menacing, voracious society that uses him for his creativity and then tosses him aside. The characters in The Brutalist are all treated differently based on their abilities and social standings. As immigrants, Laszlo and Erzsébet Toth are constantly treated as novelties who bring specific purposes to America but can never fully belong there. Conversely, Van Buren feels entitled because of his wealth and uses this to exploit those around him, following in his country's footsteps. His abuse of Laszlo, both physical and psychological, is representative of a more general, traumatic immigrant experience that characterized America throughout the post-war generation. The decision to use brutalism as the principal art movement in this film is very fitting, not just because of its historical link to Eastern Europe and Toth's family home, but also because of how effectively its stark, monolithic aesthetics reflect the dehumanization that he experiences in America. Brutalist structures aim to evoke feelings of discomfort and disconnection, which is something that clearly relates to Toth's wartime experiences. This creates a tangible anchor between architecture and history, through which the Brutalist can examine its themes.